Hey everyone, so I just want to say I don't understand why Facebook Live records it flipped. It's kind of trippy to see myself mirror imaged. All right, anyways, so one thing I want to talk about today is I've seen so many people who really want to start a business and they have these huge ideas for it, and the ideas, like, they're good ideas, they're going to work in the future. Like, basically, you can't start a 3-year-old business. And that might sound weird to say. I see a whole lot of people who, when they go to start a business, they look at the businesses that are already well established. And one thing that you may not really think about or consider is that most of the time, by the time you see a business, by the time you come in contact with it, it's probably a relatively established business. If even like by the time a brick and mortar store opens, it's usually been months, if not over a year, of work to create this business. Very few people, well, maybe not very few, but relatively few people have the privilege of watching someone start a business from the initial idea to an amazing 7-8 figure success. You know, most people do not get to see under the hood. And so when you're sitting there thinking, I want to be a business owner, all of the people you're looking around at have probably been doing this for a few years, and it's really easy to think, oh, I should just start doing what's already working for them, not realizing the huge journey that they took to reach that location. And this is where I've seen a whole lot of people get caught up and stuck, and they end up either wasting time or money trying to emulate people who have like years and years of experience doing something. And that's kind of like if I wanted to learn to play the piano, and I have like no musical experience. I'm not a particularly musical person. And so if I looked at those incredibly talented people who've been doing this for years, who could just like randomly sit down at a piano and start belting out perfect Mozart because they have so much practice. If I started comparing myself to that and sat down at the piano for the very first time and was like, why aren't I already perfect? I'd never get anywhere. But if I look at those people and ask, how did they get there? What were their first steps? Then I'm going to start making progress. And that's what's really important as you're starting your own business journey, is not to look at people and think, why aren't I already there? But to look at them and say, hey, how did they get there? And one thing to remember is that you don't always know. I saw someone, the quote, I'm an overnight success over 10 years, basically talking about how they appear to be an overnight success because at some point they basically like got discovered, but they'd spent years and years and years developing the skills that allowed them to become an overnight success. And that's something to remember. Like with me, for example, I've been in business for nearly a decade now. So while right now I'm, in a sense, I'm at a startup phase with this business because I'm working on getting coaching clients online for the first time, whereas I used to focus on only locally. I'm not a beginning entrepreneur by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I have a whole lot of experience and skills that allow me to start businesses with a lot less time and effort than someone who has absolutely no experience. And it can be really important to keep that perspective because when you're comparing yourself to people who have way more experience and resources than you do, of course you're going to fall short. And it's not because you're not good enough, it's because you're comparing yourself to the wrong people. All right? And so the best thing that you can do with that is ideally you'll be able to get a look under the hood and see how those people got their start. More people are starting to share biographies and such, but let's be honest, when someone is sharing a biography, it tends to be a little sugar-coated. But there are people who are starting to share their own shortcomings and their own mistakes and all of that, and which is really important to get an idea of how long it really took them to get started and start getting their momentum. Okay, and So you're really, instead of focusing on like how can I be a person who already has a 7-figure business, what's the most profitable step I can take today to become a person who has a profitable 7-figure business, or whatever your goal is. And yeah, and figure out your goal and keep it in sight, because I firmly believe that pretty much any goal you set yourself, you can achieve with the right steps and support. You're probably not going to be able to start a 7-figure business just sitting on the couch watching Netflix, but if you actually start taking those steps and keep that goal in mind and figure out a plan of attack, you can make it happen. Like pretty much anyone can nowadays. It's a really amazing time in human history. And so yeah, absolutely, like, do not get yourself stuck in comparison. Have role models, but remember that most of those role models, at one point, they were in the same position you were. So many self-made million and billionaires went bankrupt at one point, or they started with basically like nothing, and they were able to find a way to create an empire. Okay, you can do that, but you're probably not going to be able to do it overnight. Pretty much no one is able to do that unless they already have the skills and the resources. And so start where you are, not where someone else is. Okay, and don't get discouraged, because yeah, there's going to be times that you screw up and you waste money and you waste time, and everyone does that, all right? It's part of being human. It's part of learning. It's part of growing. It's part of succeeding, all right? The most successful people are not the people who don't fail. The most successful people are the people who fail, get back up, and try again, repeatedly, thousands and thousands of times if they have to, all right? So I'm going to end this with a quote from Larry Page. You don't need to have a 100-person company to develop that idea. Okay, really start where you are, figure out the right steps for you to take right now, and don't get hung up on the fact that you aren't where someone else is, because of course you aren't where they are yet. And so ask yourself, how can I get there? Don't just tell yourself, I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough, because you can do it. You really, really can. All right, thank you so much. It's been great. I know this one was a little short today, but they don't always have to be long.